All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Now, every single week on the Teacher Lady Show, we have a new topic. And this week's topic is all about safety. From stranger danger to being aware of your surroundings, we want our children to know what it means to take care of themselves and to be safe. And of course, we're using picture books to be able to do so. Now, this week's featured read aloud was TheTalk by Alicia Williams. And so on Monday, we have that interactive read aloud. And then today, we're going to be doing the behind the book review, where I will be going over the glows, what I think was done well, the grows, what I think could have been done differently, who this book is for, and how do you utilize it as a resource to have a more robust conversation around safety with your little one. All in this episode of Behind the Book, where we go beyond the pages to get to the heart of the story. You ready? Let's grow. Summary in my own words. This is the story of a little Black boy who is getting older. And as he's getting older, the rules for his life are starting to thicken in this desperate attempt for his family to keep him safe as a young Black boy in America. And so it's going through the process of his growth and the changes around safety as a result of him getting older. Take home message and the target age group. The take home message would have to be that there are things that Black and brown children have to know and understand around their safety that other communities do not have those same experiences with. And so there was a take home message of being aware of your surroundings, being aware of how you're coming across when talking to police officers, being aware of how other people perceive you. There's a lot of that in this book. Now, in terms of age group, I would go 7 years old and up to be able to have a more robust conversation about this topic. Who this book is for, I would say that this book is probably for young Black boys. I would say that Black families in general might be able to pull some information from the book to help them to hold a conversation around safety. Later on in this segment, I'll be going over some discussion points, but that is probably who I would recommend the story for, because a lot of the safety tips that she's giving in the book are not applicable to children who are not Black or even brown, okay? Glows. One is the subject matter. I always appreciate whenever an author decides to tackle a subject that is harder to find or learn about. I think that that's really important. I feel like the pictures were very well illustrated, beautifully designed, and just were very warm in a lot of ways. I feel like the characters in the story, they came to life by way of the images, and it also helped to share the different emotions that the boy was experiencing and going through. And then my last glow would have to be the goal of keeping our Black and brown children safe. Like, I can see that that's what she was aiming for in this book. And that's hard to do. Like, it's really hard to do a picture book on such a tough topic, one that is sad that at this point we still have to continue having these conversations. Grows. One of the things that I didn't particularly care for in the book was the advice given to the boy in the story. So the goal is to make sure that the boy is safe, but there is almost this turn of great discomfort and paranoia and now prohibits him from just existing. And I think when we're talking about safety, it is important for our children to be aware without the fear. Like, I need you to be aware of your surroundings because I need you to understand who you are without the advice of don't walk in a group of 4 or more. Like, that was some of the advice that came from his grandpa because he's getting older and he's a Black boy. That for me was, I would not share that advice with a child. I would not share the advice that when you're in a store, get your hands out your pocket and look around and watch your voice. We get to exist. Black children get to exist. Black children get to navigate the world. Black children need to understand that the world views them differently and that some people are aggressive and, unsafe and all of these things and racist, but that you get to explore and you get to see what is. And so I would like more of our focus around safety with Black children to be on how to navigate if something were to come up versus now I can't exist. I can't go into a store without taking my hands out my pocket and looking all around. I can't walk with more than 3 friends at a time. It's all of those things for me that I completely disagree with. I feel like we definitely over police our children. Black boys have the highest rate of like preschool suspension, and it's preschool. So I completely understand the need and the desire to educate our children and to make sure that they're safe. But the way in which it was done for me was definitely a miss. And the next scroll that I have for this story is the book is called TheTalk. And there's all of this anticipation and build up to the conversation that the boy is going to have with his family, presumably about being safe in America as a Black boy. But then the talk is completely skipped over. Like, we don't know what that talk was. And I think that it would have been extremely helpful for parents to hear an example of how to have these uncomfortable conversations with their children. Now, if I was having the uncomfortable conversation with my Black child around safety in this country, what that would look like is I would explain that we live in a country that is racist, that there are people who are racist, there are people who will not like you because you are Black, there are people who will be scared of you because you are Black. Until it is an issue, you continue living your life. Like, I don't want you to be so scared that you don't show up in the world. I don't want that for my child. Instead, if you are approached by somebody and you're uncomfortable, call me, start recording. If an officer does pull you over, absolutely put your hands on the steering wheel and, answer the questions that they're asking for and make sure that you call me or, call your dad. And so it's not that it was all bad advice, but I just think that the focus was too much of a scare and not enough of you get to live and enjoy yourself, but recognize that these things are possibilities and very real possibilities. We cannot go through our life just not existing because we're Black in this country. That's out. That would be some of my grows. Discussion points to have with your child, regardless of whether or not your child is Black. I would have conversations around what it means for them to be safe. What do they do if a stranger approaches them? What do they do if a police officer approaches them? What do they do if they get lost? I was taking my daughter for a while to school on the BART, and the BART would get really, really crowded. And sometimes we would have to stand up and sometimes she would fall back or whatever. And I always told her if there was a situation to where we got separated, right? Let's say we're trying to get through the door and one of us gets cut off, and I'm outside the train and you're on the train. You're going to go to the next stop. You're going to get off the train and you're going to wait. You're not going to go with a stranger. You don't need to find a phone and call 911. You're going to get off on the next train stop and you're going to wait for me. And then as soon as the next train comes, I'll get off and I'll get you. Okay, so we have these things in place in the event that something is to happen. If we go to a big place like an amusement park, there is a name tag that she'll have in terms of where she should be and who she is. You can do air tags to make sure that you're able to find your child. The paranoia talk and the fear and we just got to watch it. We got to watch how we talk to our children, and we got to watch what we put in them. And we got to watch hindering who they are as young Black children. And a lot of this is a sad reality as to why we even have to have any of these conversations. But I do think that there's a way that does it, that doesn't hinder your child from flying and from being their full self. Okay. Final thoughts. I appreciated the topic of the story. It definitely made me reflect on conversations that I have had and that I may need to have one day. I think that it's a very hard topic to cover. And I think that the goal for any of us is to figure out how do we make sure that our child is okay so that we never get the worst news. So thank you for this contribution, Ms. Williams. I really appreciate it. For those of you watching, be sure to check out the Read Aloud on this book as well as support her book in the description below. If you did not know, I am also an author and illustrator. Please check out my work as well as the Empathy Library, which is a pay it forward initiative to get books to children in need on purpose. Okay. Books just like this, books that reflect that child's identity. Until next time, you remember to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.